I was very pleased with the police response.
Nearly a month after vowing to take a harder stance in stopping violent protests, Portland's mayor says police handled last week's crowd well. Specifically, he was talking about Inauguration Day. That night, groups dressed in all black marched through the city. Some smashed windows at the headquarters for the Democratic Party of Oregon. Others clashed with police and federal officers at the ICE offices along the southwest waterfront.
They were able to make good identifications of people who were engaged in criminal destruction and violence. They were able to make quick arrests.
The mayor adds he expects the DA to prosecute those arrested, and he expects others bent on destruction to notice.
I want to call them out for who they are. They're largely young to middle-aged white men who are often co-opting other movements. You don't get a free pass when you ransack a business and then spray paint BLM on it.
Monday's press conference came as economists blame protests in part for Portland's declining appeal. According to Willamette Week, a new real estate ranking of the most desirable cities to build in shows Portland has gone from one of the most desirable locations in the country to near the bottom of the 80-city list. That drop, Willamette Week reports, came over the course of 4 years. Economists added the protests, which started in the wake of George Floyd's death, aren't the only reason. Wildfires appear to be another big one. That said, there's no denying the nation is watching Portland struggle. Case in point, Monday's White House press briefing.
Now President Biden condemned protests and violence on the far left and the far right before he was president. Why haven't we heard anything directly from him about the riots in Portland and the Pacific Northwest since he was inaugurated?
President Biden condemns violence and any violence in the strongest possible terms. Peaceful protests are a cornerstone of our democracy, but smashing windows is not protesting.
Monday, the mayor added he knows Portlanders are frustrated, especially business owners. He also admitted recovery will take time, but he cited another reason, blaming the pandemic for downtown being empty, not nightly protests.
Until we get our arms around the COVID crisis, downtown will not bounce back.
Maggie Vespa, KGW News.